People often say money can buy comfort, luxury, and control, yet it can never buy kindness. And sometimes life finds its own way to teach this lesson to those who forget it. This story begins in a grand mansion that stood tall on a hill, shining, with polished windows and decorated with every sign of wealth imaginable. But behind all the beauty, behind the expensive furniture, the marble floors, and the designer curtains, there lived a woman who had everything except humility. Her name was Mrs. Winford, a wealthy socialite known for her extravagant parties, strict rules, and a reputation for being extremely hard to please. Anyone who worked for her lasted only if they learned to tolerate her sharp tongue and unreasonable demands. Among her staff was a quiet maid named Rosa. She wasn't like the others, she wasn't loud. She didn't gossip, she didn't try to impress the rich lady. She simply worked, day after day, silently, carefully, and with genuine dedication. Rosa had one quality that made her stand out: she truly cared. She noticed things others didn't. She fixed things without being asked. She stayed late when there was too much to do. And though she lived in a small, simple home and struggled to make ends meet, she always showed up with a smile. But to Mrs. Winford, Rosa was just another employee. Another name on her long list of people she believed were replaceable. And maybe things would have continued that way forever, if not for one silly, shocking moment that changed everything. It happened on a bright morning, the kind where the sun gently warms the windows and the house feels calm and peaceful. Rosa was dusting the large glass vase in the hallway, the one Mrs. Winford imported from Italy. Thus she bragged about more than she bragged about her own awards. Rosa had dusted it 100 times before. She knew its shape, its weight, its fragile edges. But that day something unexpected happened, something so small, yet so powerful, it set the entire story in motion. As Rosa reached forward, her hand brushed against the table a little too softly, and the vase tilted just a few centimeters. She caught it instantly before it fell. It didn't break, it didn't crack, it wasn't even scratched. She simply steadied it and placed it back. But Mrs. Winford, who happened to be walking down the stairs at that exact moment, saw only what she wanted to see: a maid who dared to risk her precious vase. Her eyes widened, her jaw tightened, and without even listening to Rosa's apology, she yelled so loudly that her voice echoed through the entire house. "What do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea how expensive that vase is?" she shouted. "You're careless, completely irresponsible. I cannot tolerate this kind of behavior." Rosa tried to speak softly, tried to explain that nothing happened, that she caught it in time, but Mrs. Winford wasn't interested. Her anger wasn't about the vase. Her anger came from her pride, from the belief that she had the right to speak to anyone however she wanted. "You're fired," she snapped suddenly. "Pack your things and leave. I don't want to see you in this house again." The words hit Rosa like cold water. Not because she feared losing the job, though she needed it desperately, but because she had never expected someone to treat her with such cruelty over something so small. She nodded quietly, tears forming but not falling, and walked away. The other staff whispered among themselves, some shocked, some unsurprised. Everyone knew Rosa was the kindest among them, and yet she was the one punished. But none of them dared to question Mrs. Winford, no one except one person, upstairs. Listening carefully was Ethan Winford, the rich lady's only son. Ethan was nothing like his mother. He was kind, calm, humble, and often embarrassed by his mother's attitude toward the staff. He had seen Rosa help his grandmother, comfort the chef when he was upset, and even fix a broken lamp in his study without ever asking for praise. Rosa was not just a maid to him, she was a good person who deserved respect. And when he heard his mother fire her for something so silly, something so unfair, something so unnecessary, something inside him shifted. He walked quickly down the stairs, his footsteps full of purpose. He didn't raise his voice, but his expression showed exactly how upset he was. "Mother," he said firmly, "you can't be serious. You fired Rosa. For what? For almost dropping a vase? A vase that didn't even break?" Mrs. Winford flipped her hair and crossed her arms. "It doesn't matter. She could have broken it. And I won't tolerate mistakes. I can hire someone better. But you won't find someone better, Ethan replied gently. Not someone like her. His mother rolled her eyes and walked away, refusing to continue the conversation. But Ethan wasn't angry. He was disappointed, deeply disappointed. And that disappointment grew into determination. He rushed to the small staff room where Rosa was packing her things. She looked up when he entered, tears in her eyes, but still trying to stay composed. You don't deserve this, Ethan said softly. I'm sorry for how she treated you. Rosa shook her head slowly. It's okay, sir, I understand. Some people, they just don't see the value of others. Her words hit him harder than she knew. And then, without warning, a thought formed in Ethan's mind, a powerful thought, one that would lead to a surprise his mother never saw coming. Rosa, he said in a quiet, serious voice, before you leave, there's something I need to tell you, something important, something my mother has no idea about. Rosa blinked, confused, her hands still holding her small bag of belongings, and this moment was where everything was about to change, where Ethan's secret, his long-hidden truth, and the biggest surprise of all were finally ready to come to light. Rosa stood frozen, clutching her small bag, unsure whether to stay, leave, or prepare herself for something she was not expecting. Ethan's voice, gentle yet firm, carried a weight she had never heard from him before. It wasn't the voice of a wealthy heir giving instructions or a polite employer offering sympathy. It was something deeper, something complicated, something that felt like it came from a place of long-buried truth. Sir, what do you mean? She asked quietly, her voice trembling just slightly. Ethan took a slow breath, running his hand through his hair as if searching for the right starting point. His heart was racing faster than he wanted it to. This wasn't just about defending a kind mate his mother mistreated. This was about something far more personal, something that involved Rosa in a way she could never have imagined. I've known you for almost a year, Ethan began, his eyes steady on hers, and I've watched how you work, how you treat people, how you live with dignity even when you're tired or stressed. I've watched you take care of others even when no one takes care of you, and I've seen something else too. Something that made me question things I'd been told my whole life. Rosa blinked, confused, unsure where this was going, but afraid to interrupt. You see, he continued softly, I've always felt like something was missing in my life. Something my mother never explained. And a few months ago, when I asked questions about my childhood, about the people who were around me, the caretakers I had, she dismissed everything. She said it didn't matter. She refused to answer anything. Rosa's eyebrows furrowed. Sir, I don't understand. What does this have to do with me? Ethan stepped closer. Everything. Her breath caught. Rosa, my earliest memories are not of this mansion. Not of wealth. Not of private schools or expensive toys. My earliest memories are of a small room, a wooden crib, a woman with warm eyes, a lullaby I still hear sometimes when I can't sleep. His voice wavered for a moment. A lullaby my mother never sang. Rosa's eyes widened slightly, her heartbeat rising in her chest. And months ago, Ethan added, I found something hidden in an old box in our storage room. A photograph, a woman holding a baby. You were the woman, Rosa. Rosa's entire body stiffened. Her fingers tightened around her bag. For 1 second, it felt like the floor slipped from beneath her. I don't... She could barely form words. Ethan nodded slowly. I didn't recognize you at first. You looked younger, tired, but happy, happier than you ever seemed here. And the baby was me. A trembling breath escaped her lips. I asked my mother about it, Ethan continued. And she grew angry. She told me never to bring it up again. She said you were just a temporary helper who took a few pictures, but that didn't make sense. Why hide the photo? Why lie? Why would my earliest memories match the background in that picture, and not this mansion? Silence fell between them, heavy, emotional, electric. Rosa finally lowered her eyes, tears forming despite her attempt to hold them back. The truth she had carried for decades, the truth she had buried to protect herself and someone else, was finally pressing against her heart with so much force she could barely breathe. "Sir?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never thought you'd remember. I never thought you'd recognize me." "So it's true," Ethan said quietly. She nodded, slow, painful. "Terrified. I was there when you were born," she said, her hands trembling. "Not as a maid, not as a worker. I was your nanny, your real caretaker. I raised you for 2 years because your mother didn't want to be bothered. She was always traveling, always busy, always handing you over to someone else." Ethan swallowed hard, emotion burning behind his eyes. "You were a quiet baby," Rosa continued softly. "Gentle, you used to grab my finger and refuse to let go. You'd cry if I left the room. I fed you, bathed you, put you to sleep. You were like my own son. I loved you more than anything." A tear finally rolled down her cheek. "But your mother, she didn't like that you were attached to me. She hated that you cried more for me than for her. So one day she fired me suddenly, just like she did today. No warning, no explanation. She told me to leave and never come back. She threatened to make my life miserable if I tried to contact you." Ethan's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists. "And you obeyed?" he asked softly, hurt lingering in his tone. "What choice did I have?" she whispered. "I was poor, alone, powerless. I couldn't fight her. I thought maybe it was better for you to grow up with your real mother, even if she wasn't the warmest person." Ethan shook his head slowly, struggling to process the avalanche of truth that had just hit him. "So all these years, all this time, I had a connection with you I didn't understand." He ran a hand over his face. "No wonder I always felt something around you, familiar, safe." Rosa looked up at him with eyes full of emotion. "I recognized you the moment I walked into this house to apply for the job. You look different, of course, but your eyes, your smile, I knew it was you. But I kept quiet because I didn't want to cause trouble for you. I thought your mother would fire me immediately if she found out." Ethan took a step closer, his voice almost breaking. "I wish you had told me," he whispered. "I was scared," she said. "I still am," Ethan exhaled, his heart thundering in his chest. "Well, I'm not scared anymore." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said with quiet determination, "my mother made a mistake firing you. And now she's going to learn a lesson she should have learned a long time ago." Rosa's eyes widened. "Sir, what are you planning?" Ethan stepped back, his expression firm, almost fierce, more confident than she had ever seen him before. "Something she never saw coming," he said. "Something she can't ignore. Something that will change everything." A chill ran through the room, because whatever Ethan was planning, it was only the beginning. Daniel stood at the staircase, silent, still, and strangely calm for someone who had just watched his mother humiliate a woman for no real reason. The hallway felt cold. The ticking of the big clock echoed like it was waiting for something important to happen. His mother turned around and found him still staring at her, and for a moment she looked nervous. That wasn't normal. She was a woman who didn't fear anything: business rivals, board meetings, public criticism. Nothing shook her. But her son's silence did. Daniel walked down the stairs slowly, and she stepped back like she sensed something unpleasant was coming, but he didn't speak. He simply grabbed his car keys and walked out without looking at her. And that silence hurt more than any argument could have. His mother watched him leave and tried to convince herself that he was just upset, that he would forget all this quickly. But deep inside she knew this time was different. Daniel had never seen her act this way before. Maybe she had kept this side of herself hidden. Maybe she had convinced herself she was always right. Or maybe she never realized how painful her words could be until her own son looked at her like she was a stranger. When Daniel reached the gate, he paused for a second and looked back at the mansion. The house felt less like home and more like a cage where his mother controlled everything. Lily was probably crying on her way back home, carrying her small bag of cleaning supplies, hoping she hadn't lost all respect. Daniel knew he couldn't undo what his mother had done, but he could do something bigger. He started his car and drove out of the luxurious neighborhood. The city lights blurred as he replayed everything in his mind. Lily's trembling hands, her soft voice saying sorry again and again, his mother's cold stare, the shouting. The cruel tones she used to fire someone who had worked in their home for 2 years, and she dismissed her like she was nothing. He couldn't let that be the end of the story. His phone buzzed. A message from his best friend. You, still coming to the event? He stared at it. He had almost forgotten. Tonight was the charity event he had organized months ago, an event honoring people who worked behind the scenes in society. Cleaners, security guards, caregivers, maids, gardeners. It was something he deeply cared about, something his mother always said was a waste of his time. He typed back, "On my way." As he drove, his mind kept wandering to Lily's face. She had always treated him like her own child, always saving him extra cookies, always praying for him during exam weeks, always reminding him to eat when his mother was too busy to notice. She didn't deserve humiliation. She deserved respect, and maybe, he thought, maybe she deserved something even more. The banquet hall was glowing with warm lights when Daniel entered. People clapped as he walked toward the stage, but he wasn't listening. He was thinking, planning, and the idea he had was something his mother would never expect when the host handed him the microphone. Daniel took a breath. Hundreds of people were watching. Cameras were recording. Reporters were writing down every word. And his mother, his powerful, arrogant mother, would probably see this broadcast later tonight, but he didn't care. He had something to say. He began the speech normally, thanking everyone for attending, appreciating the workers who often remained unseen. But halfway through, he paused, gripping the microphone with a strange seriousness. The audience leaned forward. "I want to share a small story," he said slowly. "Something that opened my eyes today." He could feel his heartbeat, hear the whispering crowd, sense the anticipation in the room. "There's a woman who worked in our home for a long time. A kind woman. Someone who gave her best every day. Today she was fired for a silly reason. Not because she did anything wrong. Not because she didn't work hard. But because someone with power forgot what kindness means." A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall. People were fully engaged. Daniel continued, "I realized something today. Respect is not about money or status. Respect is about heart. The real strength in society doesn't come from those who have everything. It comes from those who wake up early, work hard, and never complain even when life is unfair." A soft emotion cracked in his voice. He let it stay there. It made his words stronger. The audience was silent, waiting. And that woman, the one who was fired today, the one who was humiliated, his voice steadied. "She is here tonight. And she has no idea what's coming." Gasps spread across the hall. A spotlight moved toward the entrance, where Lily stood, frozen, holding an envelope someone had handed her at the door. She looked confused, nervous, overwhelmed. Daniel stepped off the stage, walked toward her, and the entire hall turned to watch. "You didn't deserve what happened today," he said softly, voice only loud enough for her and the nearest tables to hear. "So I want to make things right, not with an apology. With an opportunity." Lily's eyes widened. Her hands trembled again, but this time not in fear. Daniel led her to the stage while the room filled with applause. She tried to stop him, whispering, "Sir, please, I can't," but he shook his head. "You can." When they reached the microphone, Daniel turned to the audience. "This incredible woman," he said, "is not just a maid. She is hardworking, loyal, honest, and dedicated. And today I want to honor her in the way she always deserved." Lily blinked rapidly, unable to understand what he meant. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a document. The audience held their breath. "I'm launching a new community care program," he announced, "and I would like to appoint Lily as the supervisor of the training team officially, and with a salary 3 times higher than what she earned before." The hall erupted with applause. Lily covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't even speak. The people stood up in a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Reporters took pictures. And somewhere, Daniel knew his mother was watching this live, shocked, angry, and speechless, but he didn't care. For the first time in his life, he did something truly right, something she couldn't control. The applause continued long after Daniel finished speaking. Lily stood on the stage trembling, still trying to understand how her life had changed in just a few hours. That morning, she had walked into work thinking it was just another day. By the afternoon, she had lost her job, her dignity torn apart by harsh words. And by night, she was standing on a stage under bright lights, being celebrated like a hero. It felt unreal, like a dream she was afraid to wake from. Daniel gently guided her to a seat near the front, making sure she was calm. Everyone came to greet her, shake her hand, congratulate her. People she had never met were treating her with more respect than she had ever known. She kept wiping her tears, whispering, "Thank you," repeatedly, her voice breaking each time. But Daniel knew this wasn't enough. He wasn't finished. Later that night, after the event ended and the guests began to leave, Daniel walked Lily outside. The cool air brushed against them, carrying away the noise from inside the hall. Lily finally found the courage to speak. "Sir, I don't deserve all this," she said softly. "I am just a maid." Daniel shook his head immediately. "You are not just anything? People like you keep homes running, lives running, families stable. People forget that too easily." She lowered her eyes, still unsure, still overwhelmed. Daniel placed a hand on her arm gently. "What happened today? Wasn't your fault," he continued. "But what happens next? That's in your hands. And I know you will do great things." Lily looked up at him, and for the first time that day, she smiled, small, shy, and full of hope. Daniel offered her a ride home. She sat quietly in the car, staring out the window at the passing lights, holding the folder with her new job documents. Like it was something fragile and precious, she kept replaying his words, trying to believe that this new opportunity was real. When they reached her small apartment building, she turned to him and said, "You saved me today. You don't know how much this means. I will never forget your kindness." Daniel smiled. "No, Lily, you earned this. I only gave you what you always deserved." She stepped out of the car slowly, still in disbelief, and Daniel watched her walk up the dimly lit stairs. For the first time in years, she felt proud of herself. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. But Daniel had something else to do before the night ended. He drove home. The mansion was quiet, but a car was parked. Outside, his mother was waiting. She stood near the entrance, arms crossed, eyes sharp, face tight with anger. She had clearly watched the entire event, probably multiple times, analyzing every second where her image was challenged. The moment he stepped out of his car, she started. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she said loudly. "In front of cameras? In front of the whole city? Do you know what you have done?" Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. His calmness bothered her more than any argument. "I didn't humiliate you," he replied. "You humiliated yourself. I only showed people the truth." She stepped closer, furious. "I am your mother. You owe me respect." Daniel looked her straight in the eyes. "Respect is earned, not demanded. You taught me that when I was young. But somewhere along the way, you stopped practicing what you taught." She froze, stunned by his words. "Lily was loyal to you," Daniel continued. "She cleaned your home, took care of every corner, never complained. And you destroyed her confidence because of a small mistake. You didn't even give her a chance to explain. You treated her like she was beneath you." His mother's jaw tightened. She wanted to argue, but for once she had nothing to say. Daniel stepped forward calmly. "I won't live in a house where people are treated like that. I won't be part of your idea of power." Her face went pale. "Are you leaving?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, shocked, vulnerable, unlike her usual self. Daniel took a breath. "Yes." The silence that followed was heavy. His mother's eyes filled with something he hadn't seen in years. Fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing him. Fear of facing herself. "You're choosing a maid over your own mother?" she said quietly, her voice shaking. Daniel shook his head slowly. "I'm choosing what's right. She opened her mouth to speak again, but no words came out. For the first time in a very long time, she realized she had crossed a line she couldn't undo. She had not only lost a loyal worker, she was losing her son. Daniel went inside, packed a suitcase, and walked back out. His mother stood at the door, watching him leave the mansion just as Lily had earlier that same day. Except this time, she was the one who felt small. Daniel got in his car and drove off. He didn't know exactly where he would stay, but he didn't care. What mattered was that he was free. Free from the cold luxury of the mansion, free from the arrogance, free from the place that had slowly been shaping him into someone he didn't want to be. The next morning, he went straight to the new community center he had been building. He wanted to start early, to build something meaningful, something he believed in. And waiting for him outside the gates was Lily. She was holding a small lunchbox, smiling shyly. "I made breakfast for you," she said softly. "To thank you," Daniel smiled. "Thank you, Lily, but remember, this is your center now, too." She looked at him, touched by his words. And for the first time in her life, she felt seen, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as a human, being with value, dignity, and a future. And just like that, their new journey began. Life had changed. Not because of wealth or status, but because one act of cruelty had been replaced with an act of kindness, and that kindness had rewritten both of their destinies forever.